Jesus has lived a life with us. And at the end, he tells those who are around him this: I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. After Jesus said this, he looked toward heaven and prayed. Father, the time has come. I pray that you would help strengthen me to take this cup, but that your will be done. Father, be with my disciples. I've taught them everything I can. The gift of the Holy Spirit will be soon arriving, but protect them. They do not understand what's coming. They do not understand. Keep them safe. Father, I pray for all believers, all who would know the name Jesus Christ and your salvation brought here. Make sure this word gets to them and that you protect them also, for the hours ahead are difficult. As Jesus was done praying, he knew what was coming next. He knows that all the human frailty, all of the messed up human nature, all of the human condition was about to just explode around him. The board was set. Now the pieces were on the move. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out. He went out there, knowing what was about to happen, knowing. He knew what was going to happen in the garden. While he was praying, he asked his disciples to stay awake with him, and they kept falling asleep. They just didn't get it. Yet he still went to the garden. He knew what the crowd was coming to do, slowly moving toward him. And he still went out. He approached them, and he didn't hide. He knew that this was his cup to drink. The time had come, and he wouldn't allow his disciples to fight for him now. This was his time to save us. We see then, just as we do today as we look into our world, don't we? Don't we? The war, the struggle, the disease, the famine, the hunger, the loss. It's still here. And just as then we see today the desperate need we have as humanity to have someone help us, to have someone save us, all because of our human nature, our human condition, to be saved from our human frailty that seems to happen year after year, age after age. We do the same stuff, folks, over and over and over again. We just don't learn. And it soon becomes clear that humanity cannot save humanity. We need outside help. We need something other than us to come in, because we're all broke. We're all sinners. We're all in desperate need of help. And that's exactly what Jesus is going to do. Do then, and then bring to us today, right now, for you in your life. And so, let's get on with this incredible story, this incredible event that happened in history. It is absolutely loaded with human emotion and probability. It's just oozing, it's drooling off the sides of the page. And it's quite a bit for us to take in. Now, Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place where Jesus was because he often met there with the disciples. Jesus often met in different places, solitude with just a few other disciples, to pray. Before big events, before huge issues, Jesus would stop and pray to the Father. And that's a good lesson for us. And Judas knew, this betrayer, that where Jesus was, because Judas has turned him over. He's going to turn him in, right? This is a bad thing. So Judas came into the grove, and guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees, they carried torches, lanterns, and to make sure we understand this, weapons. So, in order for them to have gotten a Roman detachment to come of soldiers, the Jewish chief priest, if not the high chief priest himself, would have had to convince the Roman governor that Jesus was a dangerous rebel leader whose band poses a grave threat to the power, the kingship of the land. And so this could have been up to a couple hundred soldiers, a detachment. So it wasn't like some of the images of one or two soldiers. This was a detachment of Roman soldiers ready to fight this rebel leader and his band of men and women who are going to attack and try and take over the kingship. So they came for battle. And so they show up ready to go. My gosh, if that doesn't scream about our human condition. Whenever God comes into the world, Jesus was talking about peace and love and healing and reconciliation. And what do we meet him with, world? Detachments of our soldiers ready to go, ready to fight him. And throughout history, time and time again, our human reaction is to fight. Our human condition, what is that? Well, I think this has happened so many times, they finally made songs about it and poetry about it. Psalm 2. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers gather together against the Lord and against his anointed one. They say, let us break their chains, they say. Let us bind God and free ourselves. There is something in us from the very beginning, just our very human condition. For some reason, we just don't want to take the help, especially the real help for our lives. I don't know what it is. I know what it is. It's really loaded within us. And to be honest, I want to say that we are broken. We are just broken. Age after age, time after time, this continues to happen. And one of the ways I know this is our own human willpower, okay? If we truly had control over our lives, I would be the skinniest, richest person alive. And I'm neither of those things. What is it about knowing the things we know we ought to do, the good we should do in our life, and we don't? What is that in us? When someone says, no, you can't do that, it makes us want to do it all the more. We rebel, we kick, we push, we take things to extremes. It's part of our human nature, this original sin in us. And it starts at birth. I didn't believe that till I had my own kids. I didn't teach them not to listen to me. I didn't teach them to take things and say everything's mine. This is something that's born right into us from day one. And we struggle with it our whole lives. We are broken and we need the help. Paul talks about this. Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, this is Adam, and death through sin came with it, and in this way death came to all men, because all sin. Sin means you're disobeying God. You're not following his teaching, his love for us. You're rejecting this. And if he's eternal and you're mortal and you're connected from that, well, that brings about death. And so you have all this bubbling in and within us, and it happens time and time again. You know, we read in Psalm again, surely I was sinful at birth, sinful from the time my mother conceived me. So we have this issue, which means we need something else. We can't turn to one another for the salvation thing, to break through, to really save the earth. We need something else. It can't be another human being. It just can't. Well, we're just as flawed as everybody else. So what do? What's even crazy about all this, because of our human nature, we have something called human frailty. From it, we do and think incredible things. We really do. So as this whole group of people come forward, they're trying to find this Jesus of Nazareth. They're looking for this rebel leader who's going to take things over with power. And so they bring power with them and swords, and they totally miss the message. They ask, who is Jesus of Nazareth? Where is he? Jesus says, I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go. But you're looking for me. I'm sure they were surprised. We'll cover that in a second. And look at our human frailty shooting out. As soon as this happened, Simon Peter saw what was about to begin, who had a sword himself. When at any point in the Bible do you hear Simon Peter carrying a sword? But here you go, Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, and he struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Do you see the human frailty surrounding this? You have the kingship coming with swords to battle our salvation, Jesus Christ. One man who never hid, who was always in the public. You've got Jesus' own disciples carrying swords, ready to attack, striking people's heads. Is any of the humans around Jesus doing what they're supposed to do? Do any of them know what's going on? Do any of them catch the gravity of the situation? Not a person around the scene knows what's going on. They don't get it at all. You see the human frailty coming out. Jesus commands Peter, put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? This is happening. I've told you this 1,000,000 times. Still didn't get it. And yet we strike with our human frailty. Our human frailty shows the desperate need we have for God's plan in our life. Want me to describe a little bit of it? This is our human frailty. Greed, vanity, impatience, disappointment, regret, weakness, disillusion, confusion, anger, aggression, assault, fear. Do I keep going? And it creeps into our life, and it causes us to do things we oftentimes regret. I don't think there has ever been a time that I've done something out of anger or fear that I didn't regret later. How about you? Anger and fear are poor teachers. And when we do things out of them, we do bad things. This is part of our human frailty. And that's what's happening in this scene. And who's keeping his head through it all? It's Jesus Christ throughout all of this. But there was one disciple's frailty other than Peter that was lifted up in history more than all of them. Let's watch.
I thought he was the one. We all thought he was the one. Everyone did. There was a party, and we were all there, and some woman comes in, and she has a bottle of perfume, expensive perfume, and she just pours it all over him. She did that because she thought he was the one. What a waste. We could have sold that perfume and used the money for a greater purpose. I tried to tell him as much, but he came back at me insinuating that he was the purpose. Even so, I believed he was the one. I believed that he was going to turn everything upside down. I just knew it. I mean, people would have followed him anywhere. All he had to do was just say the word, but he wouldn't say the word. Instead, my time has not yet come. That's what he would say over and over to me. My time has not yet come. Are you kidding me? He was raising people from the dead, for crying out loud. He was healing the blind, producing food out of thin air. My time has not yet come. So I forced his hand. I made his time come. Things needed a push, and I was the only one that had the courage to do it. We were all up there eating. We were all up there. He looks across the table to me and he says, get on with it. How did he know what I was going to do? It wasn't about the money. It was not about the money. It's just when you have that kind of power that he has, why wouldn't you leverage it to forward the agenda? People listen to him. You know the sound a wave makes after it hits the shore? And how quiet it gets after a few seconds when it stops? That was Jesus. When he spoke, it was like a rolling wave. And the crowds listening, they were the hush at the end of the wave. Because when he spoke and you were there in his presence, there was no doubt in anyone's mind he was the one. Oh, dear God. What have I done? What have I done?
We see human frailty just exploding around him. We are no different than Judas because we are all human with him. We need the help. And did you see there the impatience, the disappointment, the regret, the weakness, the disillusion, the confusion, the anger? All of it is just pouring out in poor decisions that we end up regretting. We need help. Paul knew this of himself and tried to explain it to us. Even back then, I put this in human terms because you're weak in your natural selves. Or another version I like, I am speaking in simple terms because of the frailty of your human nature. We have a hard time listening. We have a hard time seeing things that we don't want to see. We kind of force life into our understanding, and oftentimes that leaves out this true life that God brings to us. We need the help. And so now Jesus, in that moment, in that situation, Peter is swinging, right? The disciples are sleeping. Judas is betraying. Peter is attacking. And Jesus, through it all, is just saving us, doing what he needs to do to save us. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied, because they didn't think it was him. Who's this weirdo just sitting here alone? "I am he," Jesus said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with him. When Jesus said, "I am here," they drew back. They're here to fight. They drew back. They were taken aback by all this. This is their leader. So a couple of times they had to ask, "Are you him?" Well, again, he asked them, "Who is it you want?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of these you gave me, Lord." And so, finally, we see the desperate need, especially today, of God's plan for our life for human salvation. to save us, to give us a chance. Do you know what compassion is? It's a word that's thrown around, and I've yet to come up with anyone who could tell me what compassion means. Compassion is a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another stricken by misfortune or suffering. And it comes right next to a strong desire to alleviate that suffering. This is Jesus showing his determination and his compassion for us. And look what we're doing around him. We're trying to destroy him with swords. We're attacking people. We're desperate. We're betraying. We're falling asleep. We're ignoring. All this is happening. We don't deserve it. The disciples didn't deserve his compassion. Judas didn't deserve his compassion. Jesus was even compassionate toward the servant whom Peter striked and whom he healed and gave compassion. Paul talks about it. See, the gift that Jesus gives is not like us, like our trespass, like our works. For if the many died by the trespass of one man, the sin of one man, all the way back at the beginning that carries with us today, how much more did God's grace, the gift that came by the grace of the one Jesus Christ, overflow to many? Consequently, just as a result of this one trespass condemned us all, so the result of this one act of righteousness saved all, brings life for all of us. Isn't that amazing? It is why I am a Christian. Because Christianity is the most humanly authentic religion in the world. The only one that believes you cannot earn your way, that you have fallen and cannot help yourself. Jesus, knowing this, tells us how we should live our life and what he's done for us, but knows we will fail in the attempt. And so he comes and he lifts us up out of the dungeon by his work every day, straightens us up, and puts us on the right course every moment. That is why I am a Christian. And we see this incredible witness being lived out today in the story. From the very beginning, humans have made destructive decisions in their lives that we regret. Think about a lifetime's worth of poor decisions, like spitting out of your mouth into a cup, the worst and most vile and terrible things in your life. And just think all of humanity spitting that up into a cup. And that cup growing larger and larger over the ages that Jesus would then have to take. He wasn't praying to the Lord for his physical self. He was praying to the Lord because he knew that cup was in front of him, that he would have to pay for. And he did. Humanity cannot save humanity. We need the help to find true forgiveness, truth, salvation, and true life. Jesus' determination and compassion has changed our lives in the world. And as we enter into Lent, we need to remember that again. Come back and go, we need this. This is why we have so much struggle and continue to in the world. And what's so amazing is that compassion is shown by Jesus toward those who don't deserve it. Us. Thank goodness. So in response to all that, we should be determined and compassionate for those around us, even if they don't deserve it, because of what Jesus has done for us. And we thank him for it. Amen.